Hey guys, it's Steve. I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting. I don't see anybody on here, but I'm going to assume you guys will watch later. We are moving the meeting to um, Wednesdays at, or sorry, Fridays at 11 a.m. Mondays at 11 are going to be brokerage training. Fridays at 11 are going to be wholesale training. Um, so anyway, um, we'll get into that later. What I wanted to do today is I wanted to share going over um, how to analyze a deal actually that Mayor sent in. And I'm just going to talk about land in general and land in specific. So the property is, and I'm not using the exact address because it's going to be faster this way because I actually have MLS access to this area. Is the property is a 2-acre parcel, and I don't have the exact dimensions. You know what? Give me a second. I'm just going to pull up from Mayor what his someone just sent a text message over. I'm not sure who that is. And I'm just taking 1 second because I'm just going to send a link over to make sure no one's sitting up there waiting. Um, let's see. I'll make sure everyone can see the video that wants to be on the video. All right, so let's see who joined. I heard a beep. I heard a beep. Where'd the beep go? The beep went over here. The beep goes on. Hey, buddy. All right, cool.
Hey,
How you doing?
good.
All right, so just gonna do a quick flash of the screen so I can know where to start the rolling when I edit this in. But if I ever get around to that. All right. So what's the address of your of one of the lands? I guess we'll start with that.
One of them is, I believe, is 0NECOR # 192 Lancaster, California. It's weird. I'll just send it to you and you can do
Yeah, because it's like pound signs don't exist
Yeah, I
in
don't know because I thought it was
states.
like I thought it was like a what is it, like an APN number or something like that. I didn't. It was. It's weird. I don't know. I'll send it to you right now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, this one.
So all right. So basically, I'm just gonna so just we can address that. Do send that so we can address it offline. But I just want to show people kind of how to evaluate land
Mhm.
in general, and what you should be looking at in terms of it. The first thing you want to look at, so land is one of the most difficult things, and we're going to cover primarily how to know if how to smell out if something's a basic deal. I'm not saying you guys make the decision and say, oh, this doesn't look like a deal, don't send it to Steve. I'm just saying this, when you send it over to me, you'll know, hey, this is probably going to work, or oh my god, this is probably a train wreck. Always send them to me because there's always the only answer to every real estate question is it depends. Um, and that's why evaluating deals is so complicated, especially when you get out of the simple ones. So, as we've discussed before, symbol houses, and I'll start with those just so we don't leave anybody behind. Um, we'll stay the hell away from self storage because that's going to scare the crap out of everybody. By the way, I am always looking for self storage, but self storage is a whole different set of valuations. It's, everything is it depends. And but if you look at, oh come on, go away pop ups. All right, so this is a property, and I happen to actually own this property. That's why I leave it up here. Is if I look at this and it's a double. So when I say okay, I'm going to look at what's sold in a half mile, and I won't go through the software of how you do that, but I look at what's sold in a half mile, and I want to see what the finished value. This was listed at 120 back in 22.
Mm-hmm.
We did get an offer, but we ended up not taking it because it came with some strings. I just kept the damn building.
Mm-hmm.
Take off 50 grand for what turned out to be 5 grand of work. But so we look at what's within, and this is in a city suburban area. If you're in a more rural area, your radiuses go up. If you've got a more difficult property, your timelines. You're looking for last 6 months, half miles. What you're looking for, but more rural, more strange. Again, this is where our skill set comes in, and this isn't what we expect you to know. But just very quickly is, I think it was Shad has a deal where the woman, she's like, oh, I turned down $150,000, and he's like, there's got to be a way to make the deal work. And I said, there isn't. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, because when I dip it in gold, it's worth 200,000. So there's no deal to be made at 150, or even anywhere near 150, that lets an investor win.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why. So if we were to see what's sold in this area, and I'm just going to do a quick scan. I'm not going how this software works. It's not a software you guys have unless you become licensed and you work up in the Scranton market. If you become licensed to join us, you'll have this anyway. But so I can just pick out right now one of the ones. Oh, you know what? Edit search. This is showing me singles. This happens to be a multi that I'm comparing it to. All right, so now when I go to detail, so I find similar properties in two conditions: similar to my subject, and most importantly, finished.
Okay.
Whatever dipped in gold is for that market. And I'm not, again, this is like, you're not filtering for us, but just so you understand, hey, what we're sending over is probably a long shot. That doesn't mean you don't look into it, because there may be reasons it works. Anyway, so this is dribbling out. I'm not sure why. But basically, this particular property has a finished value. I can do, basically whatever I do to this property, it's going to appraise for around 225.
Okay.
So when I look at my spreadsheet, and we are slowly automating all of this in the CRM. We should have the CRM ready in about a week. But here's the deal presenter. I'm going to clone this as a scratch deal presenter. When I enter this in the spreadsheet, I'll skip all the top stuff, and I'll just say, okay, SF Grove Street. So it's about a 220 ARV.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means in a flipper's world, I'm going to make it 210 because it's an easier thing to divide by 3. In a flipper's world, you got to be done for 2/3 or 70%. Obviously, 2/3 is 67.77, whatever. So,
Right.
0.666, I think, whatever. The point is very close. So 210 is 140.
Mm-hmm.
2/3 of 210 is 140. That's every dollar the flipper can be into the deal. Bought, fixed, and done. He's not making 70 grand profit. That last 70 grand is he has to borrow 150 to make the deal happen from himself or from someone, and that's going to cost him $15,000 to $20,000. So he went from being into the deal for 140 to being into the deal now for 160-ish. He then has to, when he sells it for 210, pay the realtor and all of the associated closing costs about 8%. So to be safe, we'll round that up to 10. We'll say, okay, he's got another 20 grand, $21,000, 18, whatever, somewhere in that range. He's got another 20 grand. So 140 became 160 with the lender. 160 became 180-ish with the sell.
Mm-hmm.
So if he sells at 210 and if there's no deductions from sale, he's going to make 30 grand. So when it sounds like the flipper's making 70 grand, it's not. The flipper's not making a third. And that's also where he's taking his pads out and his carrying costs and his taxes and his insurance and his little stuff like that. So it's not even that much money. It's maybe another whatever 5-6 grand less than that after, and that's if nothing goes catastrophically wrong.
Mm.
So in this case, if ARV is 210 and seller wants, now we want to know what the seller wants, but we don't care what the seller wants.
Okay.
Because the seller tells us, hey, I want 160, and we say, okay, well, we'll take that into account. We'll get back to you with an answer. And we might come back and say, no, you're getting 120.
Okay.
Because I know that I can't invest more than 140, 145 in this property. So if they want 160 and there's repairs to do, first of all, if they want 160, I'm still upside down. But we don't shut them down. We come back to them with facts. Now, on this particular property, I'm making 2,300 roughly. And let's, I'm just going to, in this case, say that the income is the same. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to say it's 23, and this is, so it's going to make this, and it needs, at the time, the deal needed 20. At the time this was listed, the deal needed 20,000 to rehab. We got it done for less, but whatever. These are your owner utility costs and whatever. So we know that so real quick is if we know 147, that's a funny noise.
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot to put my stuff.
Oh, that was you. Okay. All right. I was like, that was weird. I'm not sure what that was. If we know the 210, 70% is 147, and we know it's going to take 20 grand to fix,
Right.
the most I can offer the guy is 125, and that's most. So on a quick number, I say ARV, 2/3 of ARV minus your rehab estimate, which isn't something you'll necessarily know. We'll show you that in a second. We'll put you immediately for a flipper. The flipper can pay 127.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the important distinction, is the flipper can pay. Now, our offer has to be it has to be this minus our wholesale fee. So we can offer 120, 117, 115, 110. That's where we have to get off the train if the flipper is going to take it at 127.
Gotcha.
So real quick, if the seller is like, I have like this woman that Shad has, I have it at I have an offer of 150. I didn't like it because with the realtor expenses I would make less. If it's this property, I would tell her, we can't play. There is no play here. Also, if they've listed it with an agent, we know they're getting the top of the market offers because agents are, that's what they do. They get people the most money possible. Mm-hmm. So we know we can't take it. And like I told you is we can't take something if they've been advertising it for 150.
Yeah.
We can't take it, put it back on the market at 150 and expect any differences in what they've had. The world's already seen it. So once something's been advertised, it really gets tougher for us to play with.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, real quick, if you take 2/3 of what, and very, very, very important here is that it's 2/3, if not the top ARV. I would say 40th to 60th percentile, plus or minus middle, preferably minus. So if the ARVs are 120 to 180, well, let me make it easier. If the ARVs are 80 to 100, then I'm going to pick like 78, 75, 78. I'm sorry. If it's 80 to 100, I'm going to pick, 87. Just something, 90 is right in the middle. I'll go a little below 90. So I'm going to say that 90 is what I'm going to sell it for, because I can't expect to sell it at the best top number.
Mm-hmm.
I have to have a little bit of protection there. Also, the market is softening. So the reality is, what things sold for a year and a half ago, they're not going to sell for now. Okay, so anyway, what that brings us back to here is that, so if I'm saying an ARV of 210, that means I have, I don't know, a range of 200 to 220, something like that. And I'm staying in the middle, or maybe a little shy of the middle, with my ARV. I'm being a little conservative. And that all depends on, you make some judgment calls based on markets and neighborhoods and crap like that. Mm-hmm. So you're not picking the highest ARV.
Right.
And then you're picking, and I probably should do this, because 2/3 is obviously a little less than 70%. So again, you want to be shy. You want to be shy on all these things. The only thing you don't want to be shy on is you don't want to be low on your rehab estimate. And again, you're not doing these things. Like, you'll grow into this, but I'm just showing you the number. And off the top of my head, if I had to give you an average number, $25 a square foot. So if it's a 1,000 square foot house, it's a $25,000 rehab. Almost every flip I've ever done has been a $50,000 flip.
Mm-hmm.
On a typical 1,800 square foot house, because basically, but somewhere in that range, somewhere in that 25-ish square foot. So like, just in terms of like rough numbers, it's a 1,000 square foot house, $25 is 25,000. So I look at it and say, okay, ARV is 210. That takes me to 140. 140 minus 25 is 115. Done.
Gotcha.
115 is what the flipper can buy it for. And then I got to make some money too. So now I'm at 105, 105, 110. And, this is where the finesse and the it depends comes in. And, if the seller says, oh, you know what, I couldn't do 115, but I could do 122. Maybe, that's when we have a conversation and Ryan and I make the decision as to whether we can proceed. So that's the thumbnail sketch of a simple house. Okay. Rental numbers are all about income expenses. And let the spreadsheet do the work for you here. But basically, on a rental spreadsheet, currently, property doesn't make sense. It's 0.87x is it makes less than it costs.
Mm-hmm.
Above this number, especially above 1.25, it makes the right 1.25 is kind of the right answer. Right. So anything above 1.25, 1.1 to 1.2, it's okay maybe. Above 1.25, above 1.2, it's a beautiful number. So this property makes sense as a rental, even at their asking price with the rehabs. This property makes sense. It doesn't make sense renting for $20,000 today. Now, does that mean that this asking price is correct? No, because we can't pay her now what it's going to be worth after we pour money into it. But this at least shows us with this, if your deal analyzer showed this,
mm-hmm.
It would be, first of all, you're showing me everything, you're not filtering. But I could look at this and immediately dial this into an offer for the person now with pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And we would know that the finished flipper would be happy. In fact, they probably would not. Some people would not even be unhappy with this because they goose some numbers. They put some more onto the rents or whatever. So on a quick numbers game, this is how you do an occupied, not an occupied, but an existing structure building. Land becomes a roll of the dice. And the first thing I wanted to show you on land is not a blank screen, oddly enough. Um, Google Earth, you could also use your county GIS for information, which I'll look up here. I'll find a window somewhere. Um, GIS is a global information system, I think. I forget. And different um, different what do you call it? Different counties have different levels of GIS and whatever. But anyway, so you're going to look at this, and I'm going to put in 74. There it goes. This happens to be a wholesale deal that I actually have under contract right now. And the important things you want to know about land, we'll just scroll up a little bit here. Let's say this is the parcel.
Mm-hmm.
Is if you're looking at an empty city lot or any single size lot, not like you're talking 2 acres, you're looking at a single piece. The first thing is how wide and how deep is it? Because it might be 2 acres, but if it's 30 feet wide, you may have a serious problem because many communities have, and I know I'm jumping around on screens here, but many communities have an offset, um, on either left, on left and or right. So if you're looking at a property that is like this, if this building weren't here and the lot went from here to here, and let's say that's 30 feet, if that town has a 10-foot per side offset, it's usually 15 in front and back and 10 on left and right, or 8 on whatever, something like that. It's less on left and right than it is front and back. But if you're 30 feet wide and you take even 8, you take 16 away, your house can be 14 feet wide
Right.
without going and getting variances and doing lots of dancing. All very doable in the right situation, but if you're looking at a lot and it's small, it's narrow in one direction or both directions, it may not be buildable. So its value goes down. Still worth something. Land is never worth zero. But it's also never worth, not always worth everything. So the width and size of your lot matters. So if you're dealing with an inner city single lot, then they might not be worth a lot because they may not even be buildable. Your other questions will get involved with, is there sewer on the street? Is there water on the street? Like this is well and septic world. So all of a sudden we get into perks and whatever. Your second thing you need to look at is floodsmart.gov,
Mm-hmm.
which, and again, I shouldn't say you need to look at. The second thing that we will in the process come across, you're not needing to do this right now. But this is going to be what flood zone is the property in. And the reason flood zones matter is because if they're in an A means run away. If they're in an A, they're in a dangerous flood zone, which means a bank is going to require flood insurance, and flood insurance is freaking expensive. I pay $2,000 a year for a double in Wilkes-Barre only because I was an idiot and didn't check this before I signed the contract. I honestly wish I hadn't bought the property. It really kind of ate up my profits. So flood zone is one of the pictures that in the process we look at, and also topographically. This is where Google Earth can be fun. is Google Earth will tell me exactly what the topographicals are here. Is how many feet above sea level is this? How many feet above sea level is that? Short version is how much is probably buildable. Anything's buildable if you throw enough dirt at it, but realistically, how open is this? So those are some of the things that make land a variable, and also what's its road frontage. If we had the 2 acres and its road frontage was 100 feet wide, 50 feet wide, whatever, it's one or two houses wide, and it goes back a freaking large way this way. Well, then the only way I'm getting more than that, whatever number of houses fit on the road frontage, is if someone builds a road back here.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that comes with not unsubstantial number of dollars to build a road and to bring in utilities on the road and to do blah, 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 blah. Can it be worth it? Yes. But a parcel that's shaped like, we go to the polygon bar. So if this were this by this, come on, that's going to be a more complicated multi-unit development to use it all the land than if it were, come on, I don't know, this by that. Come on. Because in this case, I'm just going to line up all my houses along here, and everyone's big freaking backyard. Or maybe I'm going to donate this to conservation, or I'm going to run, I don't know, I'm going to do one road or something that makes most use of it or whatever. But the point is, I can look at this and say, okay, I can put 10 houses right here as phase one, and I can decide in the future if I want to do a phase two. So that affects your value. The last thing that affects your value, and you guys are not doing this again, I want to keep kind of, I'm not expecting, when you're delivering me these, you're delivering me basic starting information. But again, if you're like, hey, gee, how does this shake out? And Zillow sucks as a value. We do not care what this estimate is. But when you first look at an address in Zillow, it's going to come with that pop-up about the specific property.
Gotcha.
Jump behind it. Take a glance at what this estimate is. This estimate's always wrong by 30%. You just never know which direction. But if you're looking at the neighborhood and you say, okay, 188, 188, 160, 165, wow, 290, 52. So, all right, so somewhere in that 200 number is where things are at. And yes, if I plop a brand new house, it's going to be a touch above that. But if my bell curve is 170, 160, I might get 200, a little over 200 for a brand new house, but I'm not getting 350. And that's where you, again, this is and this is not you, this is us. That's where we again say, okay, thumbnail sketch. We've determined from Google Maps that easily, without huge whatever, we can put, let's say this is 1,000 feet, so I can put 20 houses along here. Okay, 20 times 250, 200. Okay, great, that's $4 million. Fine. Now, each house is going to cost me about 170, 180 bucks a square foot. So let's say each house is going to cost me $250,000.
Okay.
Well, the first problem we have, we're going to sell them for 200, and they're going to cost me 250. I can't do that deal because even without land, I'm upside down.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever, I can put a cheaper house on there. I can put a smaller house. I can put a less pretty house. I can put a modular, whatever. I can adjust that within reason. I can adjust that. The other thing I can do is go to the landowner and say your land needs to be worth less. So the reason we go and look and glance at Zillow is to say, okay, well, we think we're going to sell around 250. And if we want a 1,500 square foot house and we're at, 150 bucks a square foot, that's 200 all in. I got to make some profit. I got to pay my lenders. Okay, Mr. Landowner, if this is going to work, you got to come down on your price to the point that everyone can still survive. Because it always goes back to roughly this spreadsheet here, and then roughly the fact that if I'm going to sell it for 210, the guy building the house has to be all done for 140. So if it's going to sell for 250, he's going to be done for 160. Well, if I take 160 divided by if I take 160 divided by $150 a square foot,
Mm-hmm.
I can build a 1,000 square foot house, and that's with no land cost. I now need to take some out for land. So if I were to take that 160 minus and this is a scratch pad. I'm not trying to whatever. And I take out a $10,000 land cost. Then and this is not dollars. This is now square foot.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I'm saying okay, if I take out a $10,000 per property land cost, I can build 1,000 square foot houses. Is anybody really going to buy a 1,000 square foot house? And so this is where the finesse comes in. But at the end of the day, what we're saying is okay, Mr. Landowner, and I think someone just joined. Yep, this is Demetrius. Okay. Hey, buddy, how's it going?
What's up, Steve? I've
I'm
been
out.
here for so long. Was here since you was talking about the when you guys first started talking about the land before the argument.
Oh, really? Because you just showed up on my screen like a minute ago.
Yeah.
All right, so obviously we got to figure out the software somehow better. But anyway, I'm actually making a lot of changes to the back end, and I'm going to show you guys a little bit of that. But so what we're doing here is we're saying now if you have a 2-acre parcel and we can fit 20 houses on it, they're all going to sell for $250,000. Let's say we'll keep it round. They're all going to sell for $300,000. So 20 times 300 is $6 million. The flipper has to be done for 2/3 of that, $4 million. And if the 20 houses are going to cost him, $3 million or 3.5, okay, he's got $500,000 to pay us and pay the land. So this is all about figuring out roughly when we're negotiating with the land seller what the land's worth. There's other questions. There's zoning questions. There's lot size questions. Like when Nair and I were talking about his deal yesterday, which Nair, we'll pick that up after this call. But
Okay.
when we were talking about his deal yesterday, it was like, okay, is it a 1/4 acre zoning? Is it a 1/2 acre zoning? Is it a 2-acre zoning? It's a 2-acre parcel. It could be one house is all that's allowed, or it could be, 8 houses if they're 1/2 acres. It could be whatever, or a 1/4 acre rather. So there's a lot of variables in land, but at the end of the day, if you have a situation where the finished value, and we'll make it a smaller number, finished value is going to be, like my friend puts a lot of modulars up by Lake Wallenpaupack here, up in the tourism area, in the Poconos, and they're going to sell for $600,000. So he's going to be done for 400. He knows to put an average modular in because he's done like 300 of them. It costs him about 250. So okay, 400 minus 250 means I can spend 150 on the lot. Seller wants 250 for the lot. My friend can't do it. Not going to happen. So he's like, all right, I know 150 for the, in this hypothetical, 150 for the lot will work. And so that's where when we're looking at them, we're saying, okay, that is the rough sketch of how we get to a value. And so it kind of covers, we kind of cover the valuation. And again, you guys are not valuing these things. You'll value them with us. But the challenges we run into a lot of times with students and with JV partners is, if you don't know, like really red light, green light, again, you're not stopping a deal, but like I'm having a conversation with Shad about one of his listings or one of his opportunities, and he's like, well, I see the opportunity. I said, great. I said, here's all the reasons I don't see the opportunity. Now, can you tell me what you're seeing that I'm not? I'm not saying I'm right, but Here's all here because we would rather the best deal done is the bad one not done. What keeps me up at night are some of my loans and some of my deals out there until they come back home again. Because I loan 50 grand to somebody, and if everything falls apart and I end up holding the bag and it ends up not being worth the numbers, I'm out 50 grand or some fraction of that. So we would rather not dig a hole. Now we're not digging a hole financially. We are signing a contract with a seller, and hopefully finding a buyer. And if we don't, we're getting out of the contract. But this is kind of the thumbnail sketch. So does that kind of help you guys understand sort of what makes a deal and how flips are evaluated? I mean, rentals get a little more complicated, but how they're evaluated?
Yeah, so basically just a lot of factors you got to look into as far as like the flooding and square footage, and basically the same thing like you said the other day. You just got to make sure everybody's in the same sort of kind of universe.
Yeah, exactly. And the flood zone, by the way, the flood zone is part of later. It's something we look at, and if you do the research early, that's great. But really, if we look at it, we say, hey, whether it's a house or land, it kind of boils down to the same thing. Hey, I'm just going to pretend this one. I mean, it says new electric panels. Its thing. It's not. But if dipped in gold is 225, or okay, dipped in gold is 290. Let's call that 300. That means a flipper has to be done for 200, 2/3, 200, 210, whatever. If the place needs 100 grand to get it there, then we can only offer the guy 100 grand. And he might get better than that from an end buyer on the open market. So that's kind of where, so basically, and we negotiate from there. We say, listen, things in the market, and the conversation when we get back on the phone with the seller with you, because the negotiations can't happen by you guys. You can bird dog and bring them in, but you can't be the negotiator or the contractor. You're the one contracting the deal, signing up the deal, until you get licensed. This is all about get your damn license. But or at least understand the differences, understand where the line is. But if you get, we sit down with the guy and say, okay, so we've done some research and finished value dipped in gold. Your market's around 150. Whatever we do to your house, literally dip it in platinum and it ain't going to matter, except for the value of the platinum, worth $150,000. New kitchen, new bathroom, new everything. There it is. Means in our world, we have to be done for $100,000, and we need a little bit of pad on top of that. We're saying pad, we mean wholesale fee. We just don't want to say it. Okay, yeah, we understand. Okay, well, 100,000 minus our pad minus the estimated rehab of what we come up with is about this, kind of puts us around this number. And I can kind of offer you 40 grand. Oh well, I need I've already got an offer of 95. Okay, well then. And we walk them through a few questions about whether or not that offer is legitimate, whether or not those people are jerking their chain, whatever. We say, listen, I'm at 40, you're at 90. If you're not willing to find a middle point, we wish we can list it for you, or we wish you well. So all of this that I just showed you backs us into how to evaluate, or how what we're going to go to, and we're going to say to the seller, hey, here's your number. So any questions on that?
Everybody, big picture for it.
Yeah. And so Naya, did you send me the actual address for your land?
Yes, I sent you both of them, but I feel like the one I just sent you is the easier one to try to navigate. Yeah.
Okay, so let me see where you sent those.
To the group chat.
0 South Richmond Average. All right, so 0 South Richmond Average, Crest, California. All right, so let me see what that looks like. Okay, and before I leave this, the other thing to always look at is, okay, so because you and I made this point yesterday, Nair, is that um, you're well. I think you said the zip codes were only one off each other, but they're actually not. 536 and 555. But
Oh, yeah, I misread that wrong.
yeah, which is fine. But basically, even if the zip codes are one off, even if they're in the same town, sometimes your school district will change. A lot of things will change. Even, it could be house could be here, house could be there, and that doesn't mean they're worth. Because in this case, Demetrius, one guy wants $100,000 for a piece of land. It's almost the same size as the other guy who wants 25 grand for a piece of land. So, it's like, okay, well, they're pretty close to each other, but why? So what you're doing here is you're taking, so where I'm going with that is, even if the addresses are very similar, especially if town names change or zip codes change, you got to look into what's different between those. Is the school district different? Is the crime rate? And again, not you got to look into now. Part of our process is because Wilkes-Barre and Kingston are next to each other out by me. Wilkes-Barre is an inner city, poor, fairly ethnic, which means their school district, although it's a beautiful new school, has a lot more challenges. So the school district isn't rated as well. Nothing wrong with the kids. They're just spending more of their budget on things that lower income, more home life challenge kids have going on. Across the river ain't wealthy by any means, but it's a little bit less ethnic challenged. Go where my house is. I'm sitting in the Wyoming Valley West School District in Swayersville, literally 100 yards in one direction on my street. If I had bought two houses further up than I did, I'd be in a much better school district, much better.
Right.
And so, like, two houses away. Now, how does that change the value? There's an analysis there, but the point is, little things can mean a lot. So again, we're going back through this and we're saying, okay, now this is interesting because I just put in your address in Zillow. If this land has this subdivision, is this the more expensive one?
Yes, that's the 120. Yep.
All right. Now we know why. He has an approved subdivision. Right there is why is one, or if this is true, this looks like an approved subdivision. Although I'm not quite sure how you get to these if they don't have roads. But fairly minor question, I guess, to a certain extent, because if they were to run a road here and they were to run a road here, it seems like they've accessed all their lots. So maybe the drawing isn't quite accurate or something.
Right.
But basically, if it comes with, this is what's called entitlement. They've entitled, in theory, if this is actually approved and done through the city and still valid and all this other kind of crap. Although what I'm seeing here is telling me it's not, because I'm seeing 9.55 acres, 4.77 acres. So obviously all of this does not add up to 2 acres. You might be like part of it, and we have to figure out which part you are. But if we took an empty parcel of land and I'm trying to pull up your other address real quick. 0 Northeast Core, number 192 Lancaster. Okay.
That's probably the harder one, or my VA just didn't put it in correctly.
All right, so Zillow came up with something. Okay, so basically this one is, and we'd have to go to GIS maps and see what it looks like aerially, and like I showed you before. But this one, if this was the same, this is entirely possible that we could lock this up at 20, whatever, pick a number, 25,000, and we could, during due diligence, do all of the stuff necessary to turn it into an approved map like this of On paper, we've done everything but move the dirt. We've done the paperwork, we've done the testing for water supply and for whatever was called perk testing. We've taken it, whatever percentage down the road, except we haven't moved the dirt. All of a sudden, and let's say that cost us 50 grand to get to here. So we bought it for 20. We put another 50 in to get it to here. We're at 75 all in. And yeah, somebody might buy it for 120. So land can be, and this is. I mean, I'm a little puzzled because these acre marks don't add up to 2 acres.
Right.
So I feel like it's only part of what we're seeing here. But the point is, if this more expensive property has this already subdivided and approved, there's that's one of the questions in our land conversations. That's why land and commercial get a lot more complicated.
Yes.
Also, California gets a whole nother level of complicated, and desert gets a whole nother level of complicated. But California is complicated, A, because it's far away, and B, because it is so topographically weird. Some parts of it are very green, some parts of it are very brown. I mean, like dirt color, not people color. But basically, if you took a piece of, it's empty land, and from the aerial, from the Google Earth, it all pretty much looks like this. But if you took a piece of this, and all of a sudden, so a piece of this might be worth 20 grand with no lines, no activity, nothing approved. And all of a sudden you do this to it, that's worth money. Because now the developer, the guy who actually builds the house, says, I don't have any legal crap to deal with. I'm looking at a self-storage location, a possible future facility. And one of the reasons that we're interested in this facility is because the road approvals have been done, the stormwater approvals have been done, the stormwater basin is already in. Yeah, we've got to move dirt and get permits and do some other stuff, but we don't have to wait for PennDOT to agree. We don't have to wait we have to, clean up the stormwater approval and make sure it's up to date, but we've got a lot less to do. So that's worth a lot more than just, hey, here's a piece of green, former farmland, whatever. So when looking at land, the person we're selling it to, the one who's actually going to put houses on it, a larger piece of land, if it's already subdivided and approved, that's worth money to them, whether we do it or somebody else does it. And that's where land can really have a spread. Because we might buy this for $25,000. First of all, if it's been advertised at $25,000, which it has been, because you can tell from the way this write-up is written, a human or ChatGPT wrote this. So this thing's being marketed at $25,000. So now we're going to pick this thing up at 8 or 10 in order to put it back on the market at 15 and hopefully get a buy. So again, it's been advertised, so it gets tougher because everybody out there who's a developer has already seen it.
Right. Do you also factor in how long it's been on the advertisement too?
I think this has been 66 on Zillow.
Mm-hmm.
The tough part is how long was it advertised and where before that. And then of course we do the same thing we did before. We say, okay, what are houses selling for? All right, well, a 1,500 square foot house sold for $285, and that 1,500 square foot house is not terribly impressive, basically. So, all right, so $300,000 for not terribly impressive, but lived in. People are living in this. This is not, to me, this looks unfinished, but a family is here. Their kids are playing. So this is considered, I guess, livable, whatever. So, all right, so that's what $300,000 gets you in that market. So 300, if that's dipped in gold, and it's hard to tell if you find a dipped in gold to really match it. But if 300 is dipped in gold, I got to be done for 200. It's going to cost me 200 to build the house. Land ain't worth squat. If dipped in gold is 500, it's going to cost me 200 to build the house. Then okay, land has five, or let's say 600 means I have to be done for 4. House is going to cost me 2. I have 200 left to play with. The land might be worth 200,000 for the parcel. So after we've kind of looked at, is the land entitled and whatever, and what's that, so we're ending up doing the same thing. We're saying, okay, what's the final house worth, and so on and so forth. So we can, so offline, you and I can look at this and sort of see, but the questions we're going to want to know are, is this land, when we talk to the seller, is his land subdivided? And like, gee, you have it on the website with this ginormous thing. You only you told us that the land is 2 acres, and you have this whole subdivision plan with 5 acres and 2 acres and 9 acres and this and that. Da, da, da. Oh, I see. You know what? This is what it is. Okay, so he actually colored it.
Okay.
So that's what you're buying for 120,000. You're buying what is very likely a single house lot. Because one of the things you'll find in the rural areas is their minimum build size is bigger. They don't want the density of a town. So you're probably, again, lots of guessing here, you're buying a single house lot. And then you say, okay, well, a single house lot is, and I realize I'm not in the same town, a single house is selling for, 300,000-400,000. Minus. So let's say it's 400,000. I got to be done. Let's say it's 300,000. I got to be done for 200. It's going to cost me 200 to build my house. And this one is, and I realize this is not the same town, but this one's much more finished looking. Almost modern, maybe modern actually. So if 300 is dipped in gold, and it's going to cost, and that's a 600 square foot house, so at 150 bucks a square foot, it's going to cost me 120,000 to build that. So I'm going to sell it for 300. I got to be done for 200. It's going to cost me 120 to build it. I can only spend $80,000 on the land. Now, so over here, I can't buy it from this guy for 120, put another 120 into it, and sell the house for 300 because I can't pay my lender, my realtor, and myself.
Gotcha.
But where this one came from, the address where this one came from, if a finished house is worth 300, and he wants 25 for the land, it makes me wonder why he hasn't sold it yet. Because
that's something that we can work. Because if the 120, if the numbers don't, if there's not enough spread on the numbers, then could we work the 25?
So yeah, because under the 120 guy, and this is without going too deep, I'm seeing, okay, I'm getting a 1,200 square foot house for 270, and it looks to be, fairly updated. Okay, fine. So probably 270. So okay, so we're going to sell dipped in gold for 300 because this is a little bit 70 showing here in this example. So dipped in gold is 300, and 1,200 square feet is going to be 120,000. Say like 180,000 to build, and he wants 120. He's absolutely selling this land at retail, and he's been advertising. So unless he's willing to really come down to a sacrifice price, there's not a lot of runway here.
That's why I asked, if we could use it being on the market for 66 days or however long it was as an advantage, because sometimes I've witnessed people use that to their advantage. Like, yo, it's been sitting on the market.
Absolutely, yeah.
For how long?
Yeah, I mean, but we would have to really, the conversation with him was, if we're going to flip it, we got to, we're going to sell for 300. We got to be done for 200. It's going to cost us 175 to build because wells and septics and yada yada yada. We're not anywhere near your 120,000. We're more like 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 10,000. Probably closer to 10 than 40. And it becomes a red light, green light. I'm doing this with a self storage guy. He wants $1 million. I think his thing's worth $250,000.
Yeah.
And I called up his agent. I'm like, is he willing to talk below 500,000, which is a little above my stretch point, but I want to see if we have a conversation.
Okay.
Hey, like with this guy, hey, listen, we're going to be under half your price, and here's why. Never just we're going to be under half your price. Hey, finished value is 300. This is why we're on the phone with him, and you'll hear me go through it. Finished value is 3. Minus. I got to be down here. And at every step, finished value is 3. Do you agree a finished new home build is going to be 300,000, 300 to 400,000? Yes. Okay. Do you agree that the average construction cost seems to be yada yada yada? Yes. Septic well? Yes. You get yeses all the way down. And do you understand that I have to pay a realtor when I sell it? I have to pay for the money that I'm borrowing? Yes. At some point, if that becomes a no, then we have a whole different conversation. If those are yeses all the way, say, okay, 300 became 200 because of my selling and carrying and operational costs. 200 became 40 because of what it's going to cost me to build the house. And I've had them say, I totally understand where you're coming from, but I'm not willing to do that deal. So you're absolutely right. You can use the time, and this goes for any seller, land, building, otherwise. We use the time on market. We use the whatever. But the other reason why existing properties that are already advertised are hard, and your VA is doing good to find things, but you and I have to talk about how to refine what they're finding, and maybe refine the original data set. But you are, how do I put this? If he's advertised, the one of two things is true. He's either people aren't calling him because of the price, or they are calling, he's been getting offers in our ballpark and he's been rejecting them. Because let's face it, the taxes, even the California taxes of this over here, are probably a hell of a lot less than the taxes for the developed areas. Empty land is always very low taxes. So he might not even give a crap about the carrying costs, what I'm getting at. So the conversation with him is going to be, hey, sir, da-da-da-da, 300 minus. We're going to be down in this ballpark. Should we even, have a negotiation? And he's like, no, get out of my face. And sometimes they get nasty. Sometimes they're polite. Okay, great. Pink, next, or done. So anyway, so now let me switch to Demetrius. Have you got any updates on your end of it? Not sure where Shad is today, but
yeah, so I got back to that person I spoke to you about. She set an appointment with me for the 30th of this month.
Okay.
I forgot to write it in. I'm gonna do so after this.
Okay.
But I do got some info down. She's on this side. She's in Staten Island. She says she hasn't talked to any realtors or anything yet. But she's been trying to sell her house for like a year now. So.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So I mean, if you fill out did you already fill out a sheet on her?
No, I said I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it after this call.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, and obviously she doesn't want to talk till the end of the month anyway, so that's not a big deal. What I'm looking for here is I actually paid for a Tiffany High training that I want to share out to you guys. She's one of the guru types. We do this every once in a while. And so we're going to be sharing to you guys some of our trainings as well, some of the trainings that we take and some of the trainings we try to keep up with from some of the people bigger than us. But yeah, so basically, so if she's been advertising for a year, like somewhere, that's now what is she advertising it at?
Say it again.
So she's been trying to sell it. Has she been advertising it somewhere? Is that what she's been doing?
She said she's been advertising it somewhere else. I think Arizona is what she said because she has family over there, and supposedly her family are a part of this real estate economy. So she's talking about she's gonna wait and see. That's why she set up an appointment with me so far away. But I'm not really stressed. I'm trying to find somebody else
All
because
right.
she doesn't even sound like a serious person
Yeah,
anymore.
she's certainly not under any pressure if that's where she's at.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality of who we're looking for, and this is really we kind of so. I went this way because today Ryan and I were going to do this together, and he's going to talk about seller attraction and stuff, which I'll cover a little bit, but he's much more the specialist in that. But the reality of who we're looking for, if they're like, I already have 4 other offers, or hey, and I'm not saying we don't. Everything is. It depends. It depends. But nothing is. If they're not pressured in some way, motivated in some way, then they're probably not a wholesale deal. Because, I mean, bluntly, if they can wait, they should list. And their pressure might be, I don't want to deal with a realtor. Their pressure might be, I don't need the money, but I just want to get this thing fuck out of my life. But if they're like, oh yeah, well I've got some family, and we're going to talk about, where's the land? If she's talking about Arizona.
No, the land is in Staten Island, but she's saying that she has people like her family, I guess, that are in the real estate company. That I guess they have hands or feet over everywhere. So
Okay,
I don't
all
know.
right.
I don't.
Yeah, so she goes for 9 reasons. She goes to the bottom of the list. She's got family in real estate, so they're going to tell her what's with these shady wholesalers, or they're going to do it for her. A lot of reasons. There's no pressure point. There's no this. There's no that. I mean, keep on her, and we'll next week we'll have a CRM that'll help keep on her, or help remind you to keep on her. It won't. I'm not letting CRMs do that right now because I have a conversation about that a bit later. But really, what we're looking for is people that have a pressure point. And Ryan, as a training, we'll do next week on how to find people like that. But one of the emerging ones is, I heard a beep, but okay, I guess it didn't. Okay, fine. One of the emerging ones is pre-foreclosure, because the reality of where we are now in an economy is, I thought I had this chart, but it looks like it's gone, is that there are more houses. The houses are remaining on the market now for more days than they have since 2018.
Oh wow.
So, I mean, I don't know if we're quite at 2018 levels yet, but we're definitely curving upward. We're way past anything since COVID. I mean, since COVID, houses have been on the market for hours. It was like it was stupid. It was like the conversations I was hearing during COVID were from buyers were, what do I have to offer to get this house? It wasn't, what is this house's worth? Now it's much more, what is this house worth? So we are heading into an economy where there'll be more buyers than sellers. And again, this is not political. I'm not a fan of what's going on in politics right now, but I think it's going to make the problem worse. But the reality is, the problem is simply that real estate's a pendulum. We were extreme sellers market the last 4 years, so it's going to go the other way. Pendulums can't continue in one direction. So it's going to correct, and that's actually good for wholesaling. First of all, it's going to flush out a lot of the newbie wholesalers who were, made a lot of money in the last 3 years selling things to stupid people. But it's also going to get rid of a lot of the. It's going to get rid of the people who don't know how to run numbers properly. But it's going to mean there are fewer good buyers. Our buyers are going to matter a lot more. Our sellers are going to be easy. So we're going to look into getting some pre-foreclosure data, or showing you how to get pre-foreclosure data from your communities as well. That's one of our trainings for either next week or the week after. And you can start running Facebook ads. You can start posting, hey, are you having foreclosure trouble, tax trouble? People are having money troubles right now. Bluntly, I mean, it's sad, but it's going to get sadder. but sadder is good in some ways because these people have pressure points. So we're looking for people with a pressure point. We're looking for some reason they want to get out. And she's, I mean, you can tell right now, keep her on the, check in every couple of weeks, but, maybe once a week, maybe once every couple of weeks, whatever. But, she's not one that's chomping at the bit. We know that because she told you 3 weeks from now. And you're looking at flyers, your postcards. You got those postcards going on?
Yeah, I finished.
You got them? Okay, cool. Yeah. So if you have any questions on designs, post them up or send them over. We'll look at them. Flyers, postcards, bandit signs. Bandit signs are easy to make. You can buy the stuff at Home Depot. They sell the corrugated plastic. They sell the fat ass markers. I buy houses. I fix foreclosure. Your phone number. You stick them on stakes and you stick them at places where people will see them, I guess would be the way I would put it. Meaning intersections. If they're going 60, I mean, you can put them wherever. But if it's a 5 mile an hour road, chances are they'll either get blown down or no one's going to have enough time to read them. You put them at traffic lights. You put them at corners. You put them at places where people are going slower, bluntly. Kind of thing. You do that. And this is who you're looking for is like this woman we're closing now. Real quick. So we had a house. Let me find it. All right, so it doesn't really matter the physical house, but that we put under contract for 70. We found a buyer at 95. And okay, fine. It's kind of crappy inside, and the numbers work. At 95, the numbers are a little thin for the flipper, but he's fine with them. But there were more owed on the basically 70 didn't clear the debt, didn't clear the title. 73 cleared the title. And the seller told me that she really, even though I legally could force her to, she really can't sign the agreement unless she walks with $1,500 because something else going on in her life. So I'm making $25,000. I'm taking $5,000 out of my money, and I'm just making it right. I'm paying off the thing, and I'm giving her $1,500 and whatever. But what I'm getting at with this is that every deal comes with challenges all the way down to the finish line. And so we always have this is part of where you guys will figure in on these deals. And again, New York is not a license required state. I don't think California is, so we can do those deals. You can be full, you can be active on all phases. But every deal is going to have hiccups all the way down to the end. Because at the end of the day, this woman could refuse to sign. And yes, I guess I could take her to court. I guess I could see if a judge would force her to lose money. But even if I got the judgment, if she doesn't have the $3,000, where does the money come from? And since always the contracts die if the sale can't cover the liens, I don't think basically would I win that. If I agree to pay the $3,000 and tell her to jump in a lake about the $1,500, I would probably get my judgment. But sometimes it's easier to make, sometimes it's easier to solve the problem with money. That's what it comes down to. So every deal will have things right up to the finish line. Not every deal, but most deals will have things right up to the finish line that need to be adjusted for. So that's why when we are running our spreadsheets up here, we're not saying the ARV, if we put an ARV of 250 on something, it better be an ARV of 275. But that can't be the top ARV because the flipper is in the same situation. If he projects he's going to sell it at 250 and the market softens and he sells it for 230, all of a sudden maybe he's losing money. So he has to assume a little bit safer. If he estimates a rehab of 20,000 and the rehab is 30,000, ouch. or there's something on the way in where the seller needs an extra couple $1,000. So these don't you don't have to build them in, but you just some deals don't have them. Some deals have a $3,000 spread, and it's just never going to happen. I've got one deal I've got 40 hours into, and it's not going to happen. It's going nowhere. So basically, that's kind of where So basically, keep on her, keep on that. We are going to have next week a training on both how to attract sellers, but also how to run the basics of our CRM, how to get the stuff into our pipeline. So our pipeline should actually be ready then. So that's kind of what I have for today. Any questions, guys? I know we've been on for a while.
Did you say you were going to talk about the land OS?
Okay, yeah. So I'm actually going to have on Monday. I'll be able to train you on the land OS.
Okay.
Because I've got to be shown it over the weekend. I think he's opened it up. I'm not sure. I have to check with Eric over the weekend. If not the land OS, I'll show you the other land app that I have, the more basic land app.
Okay.
So I'll have to cover that Monday because I don't have that. I haven't been into that yet. He's still waiting to open the doors on it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so we'll do that. And one last thing I want to show you guys is this is another easy market because I'm potentially a buyer. Now I'm a buyer. I'm in a network of buyers across the country, so I'll take them anywhere. I'm a buyer in Eastern Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Lower New York, anywhere in New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, but primarily Eastern Pennsylvania. Figure an hour around Allentown, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia to Scranton to State College to whatever it is to the east. Figure an hour around Allentown. But what we're looking for is now this is a grouping bigger than I think I could actually take down, but I'm still looking at it anyway. 516 units is absolutely absurd. At least absurd from my level. $9.5 million is a number that I'd have to find a lot of freaking help to buy. But we are looking for self-storage. We are looking for non-chain owned. Don't look at Extra Space. Don't look at Square Foot. Don't look at U-Haul. Those guys will never sell ever. They just will never get sold. When they talk about REITs and BlackRocks and trillion dollar asset holding real estate companies, all of those names I just said are that. Okay. So those big brands are never going to sell. We buy these to fix them and sell them to big brands. Like this should be getting sold to a big brand. I don't know why this thing still exists because it should be sold to a big brand. But the point is, if you find mom and pop off market self storage, like literally, Drive for Dollars, Virtual Drive for Dollars, Google, whatever, we have a whole different path for it. Basically, the whole different set of questions. But if you've got local self storage and you can get their contact information, and you think there's some reason why they think they might be willing to have a conversation about selling, we're down for it. We're down to have that conversation. Same thing to a smaller extent, mobile home park sectors. Mobile parks, they can be dumpy in mobiles and self-storage. I don't give a crap. They can be rusted. I like them rusted. I like them rusted. I like them beautiful. It's all about the numbers. So I'm just saying another avenue to go looking at is these kinds of commercial spaces.
Okay, that's good. My thing is like where would be like how would I go about finding these? Because I've been using PropStream, but I don't know how accurate.
Oh, yeah, no, they're not going to exist there. Like this is literally. I'm actually working on what I got ChatGPT working on is a spreadsheet for the state of Pennsylvania on every community, and I'll play. I'm going to build a Land OS clone for self storage, but really, what it comes down to now is you're just going to look at. I mean, and this is a little bit of an oversimplification, but I've got a 1 o'clock I'm going to jump off onto. But you're going to look at more of a statewide thing. For a guy like me, a buyer like me, you are not looking at the Philadelphias and those communities,
Right.
because now if you found, and I know, now you're down there. Like I'm not saying there's no facility in Philadelphia that I could buy. I'm saying that a larger facility in Philadelphia, or Philadelphia, greater Philadelphia, and Extra Space or whoever is probably already bidding on it. That's why I'm surprised about this one in Reading, It's 516 units. How is Extra Space not all over this one? There's a bit of a backstory. Apparently, the seller is a jerk and doesn't like to talk to people. That might be why. But I'm not saying if you found a deal in Philadelphia, I'll take it. You find a deal in Boston, I'll take it. But you're looking more in the little bit more rural, not rural, but more suburban and smaller metros, Reading, Lebanon, whatever it is out in New York. I don't know the communities, but the point is, you're looking in those areas because that's where there's Extra Spaces are not looking. You're not looking in Miami, Florida. You're looking in Lakeland, Florida, which is only about 40 minutes from Miami, but it's not Miami. Yeah, could a facility pop up in Miami? Yeah, but you're looking in Lakeland, Florida. You're looking in Reading, Pennsylvania, Pottsville, Pennsylvania, because Extra Space isn't. And right now, this is why I'm developing my OS. Is it's kind of like throwing a dart and saying, all right, you know what? What about? And I'm just going to go down toward Philly. Uh-oh, somebody beeped off.
I think it was Demetrius.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, he left and came back.
Yeah.
So basically, So basically, real quick, it's kind of a bit of a throw a dart at throw a pin at a dartboard, and then say, okay, something like self-storage near Reading, PA, and literally just kind of get a list of them and start calling down the list. Or Google Maps them, do virtual drive-bys, and if they look a little dumpy, they look a little, outdated, they look a little whatever, those are where you start.
Okay.
And I mean, and once you get a pulse where someone says, hey, you talk to the desk person, and I can help you with a script. Like I'm saying, if you get the phone numbers, then before you call them, I'll give you the script. But basically, the script is, basically you're trying to get to the owner, and you're trying to say, hey, listen, I work with a buyer of self-storage, an actual end buyer. Would you guys be willing to have a conversation about possibly selling your facility? And even if they say no, they go into our follow-up metric. If they say, whatever, if they say yes, great. If they say no, well, then they're in our follow-up metric. Also, these websites like selfstorage.com can also be good because Budget Store and Lock, that's not a national brand. So now you look up Budget Store and Lock in Shellington and you call them. These websites that are trying to sell self-storage unit, trying to help people sell self-storage units are, potentially good targets. Also, I'll tell you, this can be a lot cheaper for me to buy this than it is to buy that. These pretty glass and whatever towers are going to be a lot more expensive. So, I'm just saying that in that sector, if you bring me something, let's make it easy, Eastern Pennsylvania. Let's, if you find something, have a conversation about it, And if it's outside that radius and you get in a conversation, like if you get one conversation on Staten Island with self-storage owner, people in my network will buy it and we'll still make money. Land and, bigger land, entitlement land and commercial is a lot harder. Whole different conversationals, but there's more money available. So I'm not saying do it instead of residential. I'm just saying that if you need to kind of change the game a little bit, keep your eyes up there. And this is also a lot of driving for dollars. I keep forgetting about a self-storage near me because it's in a kind of a back road area. But and now I passed by yesterday. It's starting to get overgrown. It's like, all right, they didn't want to talk 2 years ago, but now they're clearly not even mowing their lawn anymore.
Right.
All right, so we're good. So let's start planning on next Monday at 11. Is Monday 11 or Friday 11 better for you guys?
Friday 11.
Friday 11. Is that good for everybody?
We can do Friday. Yep.
All right. So yeah. So we'll set up for Friday 11, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.
You do. Thanks. Bye-bye.